my friend, longtime movement trainer, strength coach, TACFIT team leader, and now probationary firefighter. How's it going?
It's going great. Yeah, thanks for having me.
Yeah, thanks for coming on. What's new? You're working now in the Seattle area.
Yes, I am. Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's been quite an exciting time to enter into the world of emergency response. It's pretty cool. It's pretty cool to be at the epicenter of things. I've been working in the Seattle area as a firefighter EMT, and definitely a new rhythm now with the pandemic in full swing.
It's crazy, huh? What a time for you to enter in to the field.
Yeah, it feels good to be able to help. Like it feels like I'm actually. There's a lot of unknowns, and it's very dynamic every day with new information and the developing protocols for quarantining and patient care. But it's really an exciting time to be part of it. I'm loving it.
Yeah, awesome. Yeah, what's crazy is it seems like a common thing. It's just we don't know how long this thing's gonna last, right? Like the quarantining and the kind of stopping everything, like our way of life in a way.
I know.
For everybody, really, right? It seems like around the world, like everything's like on a pause.
Everything, yeah. It feels very dystopian right now, and just so surreal that everything could come to a halt so quickly. It's just wild that that the whole world can just stop so quickly.
Yeah. It's crazy, right? It's like all those apocalypse movies, right? Where
oh my gosh, yeah, right.
You're watching, it's like one day you're like, I feel like, I was watching my daughter in jiu-jitsu class, and I got a notification that the NBA got canceled for this. The season got canceled, and then the Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu Pan Americans got canceled. It was like within a few minutes, it seemed like. And then everything got real. Like a few minutes before that, right? Everything was like, okay, it's the coronavirus in China, and okay, it's pretty bad in Italy, right? They were saying, but didn't really affect us here, And then once that happened, I was like, okay, what does that mean?
It did. It's weird, the defining moments, when you start to, it really hits closer to home that this is actually happening for real, and our country needs to respond accordingly. Everybody needs to respond, not just watching it happen in other places. It's been pretty wild.
Yeah. I don't know, a lot of people I talk to too, there's a lot of conspiracy theories, it's made up in a way, the hospitals being overrun, and obviously not the people that I talked to in Spain and Italy, but nobody's really in those places, What are your thoughts? Do you know any I guess doctors and people working in the hospitals where you hear firsthand experiences?
Definitely. Yeah, we had in the Seattle area, there's been a number of first responders that I know personally that have been quarantined from exposure. There's been a handful of them that have been very sick and had to suffer through, the actual COVID virus disease. And I don't know personally anybody who's been intubated and in the ICU, but I don't necessarily think it's a hoax. I think it's pretty, from what I see on a day-to-day basis at work, it's very real.
Yeah.
And I've had members of my family that are sick from it. It's definitely different. It's not just a bad case of the flu. It's it's the worst of everything you've ever had being sick. You just get pummeled by it. It completely grinds you. And I think the people that are at high risk and susceptibility because of underlying risk factors, their body just gets ravaged by it.
Yeah, who knows? I guess, huh? We don't know yet, right? Why some people get ravaged by it, and some people they just get little small symptoms or no symptoms at all, right?
Yeah, it doesn't seem to be really a clear answer yet why. I don't think people know. I mean, I think there's theories. There was originally it was suspected that it was a disease for more the elderly. And I think it's becoming more apparent that having certain underlying health concerns like, having diabetes and high cholesterol or any sort of lung condition or even just vaping. A lot of the younger generations vape, and having that in your health history, I mean, that's showing up a lot in people who are having more adverse effects to the disease. A lot of them are they vape, and I think that affects your lungs. So there's all sorts of, I think, speculation about
theories, right?
why it's affecting some people more than others. But then there seems to be those outliers too that are young and healthy and are still sick. So I don't know.
Yeah, it's crazy. My kids got the school shut down till the end of the year.
Oh, I know. Isn't that just wild?
Is that the same thing in Washington State?
Yeah, Washington shut down on Friday the 13th. It was pretty crazy.
Wow.
We had it's funny, the day before I actually kept my kids home just kind of for a mental health fun day. Sometimes I, just with the way things have been this last year with work and going through academy for the fire department and some different things, I've been gone a lot. And so, every once in a while we'll just take a fun day and I'll have like a specific date day with my kids.
Nice.
And we did that. And then the following day they shut down the schools, and it just seems so ironic that we went from kind of, wanting more time together and taking what we needed. And then all of a sudden now we have so much time on our hands together. We don't know what to do with each other. And it's been pretty wild to be high gear.
You can still go outside, right? And there's a lot of country, right? Where in Bellingham, where you live and stuff.
Yeah. Like my kids are playing outside right now. We're all still enjoying, the weather's getting nicer up here and it's spring. And so we're definitely going outside, but I'm noticing more and more people are starting to wear masks even outside, not just, when I go grocery shopping, I wear a mask and gloves, and I make sure I sanitize, before I go in and when I come out and everything, just to be safe. Partially for the safety of others, just because I am possibly exposed more than most people with who I'm working with.
Yeah.
But I'm noticing more and more people are walking around the neighborhood with masks on, and everybody's very diligent about keeping a 6-foot distance or more.
Yeah.
And, we have some people in our neighborhood that have some health issues. And so, people are going out of their way to be thoughtful of them. And I think what's really cool is to see people kind of step up and look out for one another and offer, to do either grocery shopping or whatever needs to happen to really take care of people in the neighborhood that are struggling more than others.
Yeah.
It's kind of fun to see.
Some people do that, and then some people hoard the toilet paper.
Oh my gosh. The toilet paper.
Which has nothing to do with
the toilet paper.
With any stomach.
I know it's not a gastrointestinal disease. It's like, why are people hoarding toilet paper? Just because they saw it on the news or something?
Why? Yeah, that's the question, right? Why are people doing that? How did that happen?
Right. I know, it's pretty funny actually. It kind of became a joke in my family because we were actually kind of low on toilet paper, and I hadn't really gone grocery shopping, and I don't think I was taking all that seriously, like how big of a shutdown there was going to be. And so I wasn't jumping at the chance to go, stock up like a bomb shelter full of food. And so then when we actually needed toilet paper, there was none. And my parents somehow got to Costco, waited in line for however long, wrapped around the building and everything. And they got a number, and they were given one case of toilet paper. And it was like hitting the lottery that they got toilet paper, right? And it was really, I could tell it was really hard for them to give us some of their toilet paper because there's
paper towels are okay, right? But the toilet paper was sold out right away.
Yeah, for sure. But then it was also like you're starting to find it hard, more and more to find even like paper napkins, paper towels, like different alternatives. I've heard a lot of people are starting to buy like toilet seat mounted bidets and different like water sprayer systems so that you don't have to depend on toilet paper.
Hilarious. I saw some funny memes where people are getting leaves, organic, selling it for, like one of those memes, like for $1, organic toilet paper, and putting leaves inside of a Ziploc bag.
Oh man, I wouldn't put it past them.
Yeah.
Man, I actually got online to look up toilet paper because.
Oh my God. You can.
Are you still there?
Yeah, sorry. Oh my God, I hit the button when I went to go look at something. You were saying you got online.
So I went online because there's a member of my family who has an allergy to like some of the bleach products and toilet paper. So we just keep on hand this like non-bleached bamboo toilet paper, and we don't use very much of it, but we just always have it on hand. And I got online to try to find some, and it was $30 for I think a 10-pack, and then it was $100 shipping.
$100 shipping. Why is that?
I don't know. I mean, probably because it ships from China, or I think it does specifically ship from China, and China is probably not exporting the same as they were a few weeks ago. But I just thought that was sort of telling. $130 for a 10-pack of toilet paper.
Yeah. Let's switch gears. Get off of the COVID-19 ordeals.
Yeah, it's crazy.
Yeah.
It's crazy.
You're from Washington. You're from the Seattle area, right? You grew up there?
I am.
And how did you get into movement and like strength training and like what sports did you play? I guess how did you get into it?
Sure. That's a good question.
What brought you?
Yeah, I mean, I grew up feeling fairly athletic. I was in high school I always competed in my sports. My main sport was swimming, actually, competitive swimming. And then I think I got into other things as more cross training to that. So I did some track and cross country running as cross training. And then I always enjoyed playing volleyball
cross country,
and soccer.
You said?
Yeah, but I would never call myself a cross country runner. I wasn't necessarily a competitive cross country runner, but I would run cross country and track to stay fit for like cross training for my swimming. So individual sports were more my jam than team sports. Although I really enjoyed soccer and volleyball and still play those sometimes recreationally. And then when I got into college, I picked up rugby, played rugby for a little while, which was just a fun change from, like I said, having always competed in more individual sports. I got more into rugby as a team sport, which was kind of a fun, burly group of people.
So was it co-ed or what was it?
No, it was a female team.
A female team. Okay, I was gonna say.
Yeah, women's only.
That's hardcore.
Yeah,
it's like
fun.
MMA.
Yeah, a little bit. Yeah, it's a pretty rough crowd, but the women are rad, and I think that taught me just kind of a different mental game than being alone, where it's just me against myself and the timer. It was more about how to move dynamically with a group of people, how to communicate well, and how to take criticism well, when you're not doing your job. And so that was pretty fun. I mean, I think I've always enjoyed competing and being in the athletic world. And then I actually had sort of a change of events in life, and I got into strength and conditioning and personal training when I was, I guess it was in my mid-20s. I started working at Pro Sports Club in the Seattle area, and really worked my way up, from the bottom. I started just as I don't even know the name for it. I was essentially a hang towels and clean equipment and greet members and that kind of a role, and really worked hard to study and fill in the gaps in my own education, what I was missing in terms of like strength and conditioning, anatomy, physiology, kinesiology, and all those subjects that I did not take advantage of at the university I went to. And because I just didn't know. I don't think I knew that avenue was of interest to me until a little bit later in life. And so
when you started working at that gym is what?
Yeah. And I mean, this place that I mentioned, it's sort of a gym on steroids. I mean, this place is like multi-level.
You said it was kind of like an Equinox, right? World. Like a high-level Equinox?
Yeah. I don't know Equinox as well. I mean, I know of it, but I haven't been to their facility. But yeah, I would imagine, it's probably 3 or 4 levels. And I mean, you have an entire aquatic center, an entire racket center with racquetball and squash. And then you have, a giant Olympic weightlifting room and a giant cardio theater and multiple exercise rooms specific to Zumba or spin or Le Mans cycling or Pilates. I mean, it's like a Disneyland of fitness. And it was a really phenomenal place to work. And I think one thing I appreciated about working there the most was just their level of professionalism and the standards that they expected of their employees in terms of customer service and education. And it was really just a very high caliber place to start off. And worked there for a couple of years and really enjoyed, learning. I would say I was able to find people within that hierarchy of trainers, found the people that I considered to be some of the best in the profession, not just at that facility, but some of the best trainers in the world, and really was able to pick their brains and shadow them. Everybody was just very, very cool about wanting to pass on knowledge and understanding that, we all learn from somebody. And it's really quite an amazing thing to be able to expedite someone else's journey by giving them what you've learned. And I really feel like some of the trainers there, some of the strength coaches and fitness professionals there were able to consolidate, a decade of their knowledge into what they passed on to me in a matter of years. And it gave me, I think it just gave me an exceptional platform to start from. And from there, I actually launched out. We just had some life-changing events and ended up wanting to move back up to the Bellingham area.
So you lived in Bellingham before that?
I did. Yeah, I went to the university up here.
Oh,
I went
okay.
to Western.
Oh, I didn't know that.
Yeah,
okay.
I did. Yeah, and I when we moved back up here to start a family, I was able to open up my own private studio, and I started working independently as a contracted service. So I would train. Let's see, I worked with a couple of different businesses as a corporate trainer. So I'd go on site, kind of help them create a gym of their own that I could come on site and train their employees. And then I also worked out of my private studio with individual clients and sometimes small teams of people that would come in and train with me.
Nice.
So that's kind of been my jam for the last 10 years up here.
Wow, 10 years. So how did you meet Scott?
Well, within that world, Bellingham's a pretty small town, or at least it feels like, especially when you have
Scott Sonnon.
Yeah, if you have a specific interest or specialty, you get connected pretty easily up here with other people in the same vein. And Scott was a friend of a couple of different friends of mine, and we got connected, and it just immediately was wowed by the system that he created and his ability to make things both very complex and very simple at the same time, which I think is sort of the magic of what he's created. Is there's a high level of complexity to everything if you want to go down the rabbit hole. but at the same time, it can be also simplified and explained in a way that is digestible, for you to just bite off one thing at a time and get started. And so, I became interested mostly in what I think he was presenting through TACFIT, because I felt like it was, after, I think at this time it had been maybe 7 years of strength coaching and personal training, both at the facility down in the Seattle area and then also on my own in my own studio. And I had been continually, seeking out and going after different certifications and different perspectives on fitness and trying to piece together something more holistic.
Like I saw you did the RKC, now Strong First, right? The kettlebell. I saw you did that, right, in the past?
No, actually I haven't passed the RKC test.
Oh, okay.
I definitely respect and have studied a lot of the Strong First. I have never had an opportunity to go
I see.
test for RKC. But no, I definitely follow a lot of the Strong First training protocols and have read a lot of their literature. And I actually was pretty heavily invested in functional movement systems for almost all of my strength training career. And FMS partnered with
you got
Strong
me
First.
to do it.
Yeah, right. FMS. I mean, it was a great platform for me to test where people are and just have a baseline. I really, one huge thing I took away from my starting out with the pro club is that they would have on-site physical therapists. And so it was, every day of the week, especially when I worked at the performance center, there was a glass wall between the physical therapy room and the turf where we would train athletes. And I loved being able to go in and pick a therapist's brain, or even bring a physical therapist out onto the turf with a specific athlete or a specific client and go through how to bridge the gap between their rehabilitation and their training, because sometimes you get discharged from PT sometimes even just for insurance reasons. And pardon me, just one second. Are you still there?
Yes.
Sorry about that. Yeah, sometimes just for insurance reasons, people are discharged from PT and they're not actually fully ready to jump back into a hardcore training regimen. And especially athletes, I think, who mentally, are so ready to do what they used to be doing, and they need a little bit of help kind of pulling back on the reins and working out their weak links so that they don't become injured again. And so I loved that concept of being able to get a baseline that showed me, where it was either a mobility or a stability issue within the kinetic chain, and then work that person's weaknesses out through different, exercises, different mobility drills, prehab, and then integrate what they specifically needed into their training protocol so that it was customized, so that they would never end up with those reoccurring injuries. And I think having that be kind of the thing that I loved most with FMS, when I met Scott, I felt like I'd never seen a program so comprehensive and so holistic as the one that he created, with the foresight to integrate mobility, and you're kind of priming your body for an exercise or a specific set of exercises in the workout, and then regressions and progressions within the workout that were specific to how somebody moves or somebody's movement deficits. So you can have someone who's super strong but maybe restricted in a range of motion, and that would come out in the exercises that he prescribes. And so then you can very strategically regress, and I think good coaches can take what Scott's provided and then even take some of his mobility drills and even implement them as even further regressions, and really take care of an athlete and get them moving, get their movement literacy back up on par. And then definitely his approach to compensating for movement. So not just training somebody specifically for what they need to be good at, but recognizing that specific adaptation to impose demand, or the set principle, can actually lead to overtraining and burnout and overuse injury. And so, Scott applies this idea of
I've never overused anything.
Yeah, right. Yeah, none of us have. Right. I know. I mean, you're a perfect example, just like the things that when you're a really high level athlete and a professional athlete, that's what you do is you need to hit
the gas pedal.
It's your job to hit the nail on the head. And so if you have to hit that nail on the head every time, because that is what you're getting paid to do, you're going to, at the expense of the other moving parts in that system, the hammer or the arm that holds that hammer, those different joints and pieces are gonna get worn out. And so I love that I feel like I really learned from him how to apply moving in the functional opposite direction and balance to the structure as a primary focus, even in designing programs. As if you dive deeper into TACFIT and you start to become an instructor and go down some of the rabbit holes, I love the ability to manipulate and program design in a way that's just so intelligent and so thoughtful of each athlete, and so holistic in that, you're priming the body for the movement, you're regressing and progressing the movement based on a number of factors, and then you're compensating heavily for the movement and understanding that really that's the most important part of the workout, is getting yourself to a point where you can compensate well and, down-regulate your sympathetic nervous system in a way that allows you to relax and to
the ability
regenerate.
To relax, right?
Yeah.
It's harder than turning things on. It seems
it is so much harder. Yeah. It is so much harder, especially when you're a hard driver, and you're, you push yourself already. And anyway, yeah, I mean, I could go on about it, but it's just, when I started to understand that's
one
what
of the
really
things
attracted me.
that really got me, when he did like a whole blog, right, back in the day when it was like, I don't know, 2007, 8, he's like, your strength and conditioning should not get in the way of your sport.
Right.
Your strength and conditioning should not get in the way of the sport. It should only help it, right? Make you better at your sport. It shouldn't get in the way.
And even more than that, I think, something that he pointed out that kind of made me rethink some things I was overdoing, even in my team leader training, was realizing that your strength and conditioning should never be your sport. That becomes really problematic when we start making our time in the gym strength and conditioning for our specific sports or our specific occupations. That kind of becomes our everything, and that really it shouldn't be your sport. And I think that's sometimes what we see with a lot of athletes. That
you do the same movement patterns that you have in your sport. Is that what you're saying?
I think it's more speaking to using, essentially taking strength protocols and making them competitive.
I see.
Right,
that's
like a CrossFit game.
Right. That's why I always loved like the health first fitness, that saying, I guess, that he coined. Right, it's health first fitness. It's like health first. It's like a simple thing, right? But yeah, that's what I was
thinking. Simple thing, but it's easy to neglect, or it's easy to
forget that,
not prioritize it. Yeah,
is this good for my health?
Is this really good for my overall health? Is this making me move better? Is this making me feel better? Is this improving my headspace? Is this giving me more quality time in my life doing the things that I love? All those questions.
Yeah.
And Scott, like he's so good at asking questions instead of giving answers. He'll kind of provoke more thought by just asking the right question at the right time. Yeah.
He it was like this is one thing that really kind of, I never stopped thinking about TACFIT once he introduced me. Well, it was CST right before TACFIT, and so I don't think TACFIT, the name TACFIT had existed even yet. But
right, TACFIT's more of a facet of CST.
Right there, yeah. So one of the one thing that really stuck with me was when I got thrown on my head, wrestling, and the guy throwing me on my head, and my neck was really, really hurt, and I had a fight coming up, and I was in a lot of pain. And usually, you go to the doctor, you get pain pills, and 4 to 6 weeks, right? And he showed me this movement And he's like, just do it, stay out of pain. He coached me, the right way. And he showed me a movement, and I did it every time I had pain. And I, if I had pain all day, I did it all day long, right? But always staying out of pain. And I healed myself probably within like around a week, a week's time. Maybe, who knows, even less, but I started to feel myself get better like every day. And it just had such a big impact on me that I never stopped thinking about it, and like over a decade, right? And then I met you at the TACFIT Cert in Bellingham 10 years later.
That's right. That's right.
At Scott's last one that he ran, right? For the level 1, the field instructor. But it was just, it was like the one thing, And so speaking of the one thing, like you hurt your neck too, right? That's how you kind of, is that what got you more entrenched into the system? Made you more of a believer, or got you to become more of a believer?
I did. I'm more of a believer. I don't think I answered your original question. I think I've met Scott a number of times, but really what spoke volumes to me about his work and just who he is, was I did hurt my neck. It was a really confusing injury because there wasn't any acute trauma. And I've always tried to think back to what maybe was the original catalyst, but it was postpartum with my second daughter. And I think I was trying to push pretty hard back into work, working with clients. I don't think I respected some of the ligament laxity that I had. And I was overdoing a few specific movements. If when I was teaching classes and clients, the same programs over and over again, multiple hours a day. And I ended up waking up in the middle of the night one night with this crazy cramp. It felt like a cramp in my shoulder, my shoulder blade. And it started migrating into my arm. And I must have spent hours awake that night trying to stretch or trigger point with a ball, do myofascial release. I was pulling out every tool that I had to try to take away a muscle spasm. And it progressed to the point where by the time it was morning, I was completely immobilized. The only thing I could do was lay on my back on the ground to stabilize my neck. I started to realize, obviously, that it wasn't a muscle spasm. It was some sort of nerve damage or nerve impingement that was causing my muscles to react. And I couldn't stop it. And there was nothing I could do to alleviate it except laying on my back. Not that it took the pain away, but it didn't make it worse. If I laid on my back, I could kind of stay in this like level 9 of pain. And at that time I had a 6-month-old that I was nursing and an 18-month-old running around. And it was really, it was pretty devastating for my family. And it went on for, there was probably about 5 or 6 weeks where I was mobilized.
Wow.
And I had a friend come over, a really good friend of mine is a physical therapist in town, and she brought over her PT table, and she literally set up her PT table in my living room. And that's where I spent all my time. I laid on it all day. I slept on it at night. And Scott gave me a number of exercises to do. Once I was sort of starting to come around and could move a little bit, I started doing some extension drills with my cervical spine, some things that I knew to do for lumbar pain, just from some past clients that I had worked with, but had never specifically applied it to the cervical spine. And then a little bit of essentially what we know to be into flow, where you do some different directional movements. And little by little, I started. Yeah, and it sounds very similar. Yeah, and just little by little, I started to get the pain to go down to a point where it was manageable. And it really feels like ever since I've kind of got this shock collar awareness in my neck now. It's kind of a blessing, because if I let my spinal alignment become lazy, I think my body tells me because I'm so haunted by those feelings that I had when the nerves were pinched. But it really was pretty miraculous to see how quickly I was able to recover from what felt like a life-stopping injury. Yeah, and then so once I got back from that injury,
how long did it take you once you started doing it?
Well, like I said, I think I was down for about. I know I was down from work for at least 6 weeks, and then when I came back, at the time I was mostly teaching I think within the circular strength training, I had connected with Summer Huntington, and I was working with her Club Bell yoga protocols. And that was kind of what I had been doing up to that point, and one of the reasons that I'd connected with Scott. And then once that injury hit and I recovered from it, I think that was the catalyst for me to really dive deeper into a lot more of the multifacets of CST, or circular strength training, in its entirety. Because I realized that for me specifically, the Club Bell yoga training wasn't, it just wasn't appropriate for what my body needed and some of the strength deficits that I was struggling with. And so I really started to dig deeper into, what was his, because there's the tri-ring system, right? Like you have your into flow and your joint mobilization, and then you have your protocols and your strength, which TACFIT kind of falls into, and your heavier club training, which was
the
something
three
I
rings,
hadn't
right?
really,
the body flow, the Prasara yoga, the into flow, and then the club bells, the strength.
Yeah, and then the third ring is the Prasara yoga and the compensations. And so I think what I realized from that was like, man, I really want to understand all three of these rings. So I started digging more into flow, and especially some of his primal stress programs and the revive and thrive flows. And then definitely got more heavily invested in heavy club training and understanding, the fulcrum of that offset weight of the club and how to utilize that to really build better body awareness and mechanics. And then the compensation piece of things with the Prasara yoga, which for my body specifically, I just felt like the Prasara flows were so much more of an answer to the problems I was having than, some of the traditional sun salutations that you learn in the yoga class. So yeah, that was definitely the beginning of me diving a lot deeper into the programs.
Yeah. For me, the body flows has been a game changer. I don't know what I would do without him, from training. And it's like every jiu-jitsu guy, like one of my best friends is here, and he was the top of the food chain jiu-jitsu competitor, and his lower back was hurt. And then I started going to Brazil, right, for the certs and the workshops and stuff. And I started showing him some of the flows, actually. And now he's addicted to the flows. He does them, almost every day.
That's awesome.
Yeah. And he's training. Feel so good. He's training, and it's a part of his routine now, is like living.
That's cool.
So,
yeah. That's cool.
Sorry, I got excited.
Yeah. I mean, I think everybody that gets into it, you start to find that it's so life-giving. It's hard to stop. It's awesome because you can train every day, and you train in a way that, energizes you and makes your body feel recovered and rebuilt stronger than, especially, I mean, if I compare it to like when I used to just train, different body parts on different days of the week, or different groupings of push pull, or, different ways that you learn to strength train. I really have enjoyed thinking of things more in a wave of intensity, and really listening to how my body's responding, and, looking at the overall stress levels that I'm encountering, which especially is changing now with my career shift, and just realizing that like your overall stress levels really impact how well you can perform. And so like listen to those cues, learn to listen to your breath and pay attention to how your breath is reacting.
Are you
able to stay synchronized with your breath, or is your breath all over the place? And, it tells you a lot about, what level you should be training at. Cool. It's just, it's such a wealth of knowledge.
Yeah, that's from it builds awareness, right?
Yeah. It's funny with all the quarantine and everything being shut down. A bunch of my local friends work out at a jiu-jitsu facility here, and they were talking about having jiu-jitsu classes online, and they're just like, man, I really wish we could do online jiu-jitsu. Just isn't the same because you don't have a partner to grapple with. And then the realization kind of came up that like, jiu-jitsu without a partner kind of feels like TACFIT. Kind of feels like
that's what we're doing.
Some of those,
we're doing some like movements, but like TACFIT is where it's at, because it's going to teach you those components of jiu-jitsu at the most basic level, right? And a lot of times people are missing those things because they just injuries, right, from overtraining or whatever it is. And then they really maybe never really learn those basic, like the key, like the technique, right, properly, you know?
Sure.
And so this, like, a, you know, like it can be a blessing in disguise because they're always training with somebody else, but then for them to actually have to break it down of control of their body, it's a game changer, right? And it's going to really help them for the long term, right? To make their jiu-jitsu better, to, you know, stay healthy, right? Stay injury free.
Right. And I mean, you just think about like the human body develops like proximal to distal control. So we like, you know, babies move from the middle and their, you know, their body, their head, their neck, and then start to apply their appendages. And when we degrade our movement patterns, or when we lose our ability to move, it actually goes the same way, which is sort of strange. Like you lose it from the center out. And so as we get older, I think it's really easy to overuse some of our distal joints, and doing especially the ground engagement TACFIT movements, you know, especially, you know, learning with you, like being able to come down to Legacy and learn what jiu-jitsu is all about, because that is definitely not my wheelhouse. It's just been so fun to see how the movements that I was learning within the TACFIT protocols and within CST, especially the ground engagement ones, being able to mobilize on the floor and roll around and move in 3 degrees of space, and not just, you know, linearly or laterally, but actually kind of rotary movements in all 3 planes. That really gave me an ability to even begin to try jiu-jitsu. And so I think as we age, it's so key to get back down to the ground and learn how to move our center and move in rotational patterns and restore those.
Like every team leader that I've had, you know, come and they come train with us, and they've never done jiu-jitsu before, but they don't seem, when they come in, they do jiu-jitsu. Most of the guys haven't done jiu-jitsu, but because of their body awareness and their capability from TACFIT, man, they're not just a white belt, you know, they're actually, they know what to do. They know how to move, you know, so they're not going to get hurt, and they know how to control, they know how to activate, they have the grip, they know how to grip properly, you know, and they have the breath awareness, and it all transfers over to the mat. And so they have no, you know, jiu-jitsu training experience, but because of their TACFIT background, it's like, you know, it's like it's a martial art on its own, right? With yourself.
Yeah, it's like, it feels like Karate Kid, you know, like you've been waxing the fence.
Yeah, that's it.
For months,
that's it.
And then all of a sudden you're on the mat, and you're like, oh, this applies. I can maintain my breath and my body awareness, even though I'm completely out of my comfort zone and stressed out. Yeah, I mean, that's what it felt like for me. It was cool.
Yeah, and then like speaking of the strength, like, you know, jiu-jitsu, right? You have to twist and push, right? It's not just like straight ahead, right? You're twisting and pushing. Like, I mean, it's all positions, all different angles. So if anything's tight, something's gonna break, right? Something's gonna get hurt,
right?
Something's gonna get tweaked, So it's amazing, you know, because you move in all those directions slowly, or, you know, wherever you're at, you know, by yourself, right? So there's no excuse. It really forces you to move in every different direction that you can go. So I love that about that TACFIT, and I tell everybody that's the same thing. You know, we move in all the different directions.
You do,
and there's a lot of things that you can do that with, right?
Right, and you know, Scott says, I know in a lot of his literature talks about like your body doesn't recognize the places that it can't move. Like it just doesn't even, it's lost the map for those places. And I think doing the movements in the system really force you to, I mean, I know you could go on and on forever about the neural side of things, you know, the neural pathways that you create, but it really is cool to see how you write new maps, you know, like you basically create new maps for your body to follow that you didn't even know you were missing. You didn't even know that you didn't even know what you didn't know. And then all of a sudden it's there, and tight muscles can't be strong muscles. And so the fact that you're loosening up and, you know, moving more freely now, it's just crazy to see the strength potential that you have without having to lift heavier weight. You know, you just are inherently stronger because you move better.
Yeah, I can go on and on about the neuro side. I mean,
I know.
Well, not just the stuff, you know, the study, but I'm fascinated because I lost my capability. You know, I lost my capability to, like, man, even just to walk, to like talk to, like I had difficulties, you know, and even putting on my seatbelt was almost impossible, you know. And so, yeah, when I first went to that cert, I have like, it's crazy because I can compete and I could do stuff like that, you know, but as soon as I was done, I'd be a mess, you know. and it gave me the capability back, like my breath with the movement, like on the lunges or whatever it was, all the movements, just kind of getting it ingrained. And I would do my breathing even when I would be walking, wherever I would be walking, and it started to get connected again with each. I mean, and the certs and the workshops, they're like kind of hardcore, right? But with each workshop, the harder I trained, like the better I got, the more healthy I got, and I felt it from the inside out. Yeah, I knew it was good, so I went all in, and yeah, it's changed my life. It's given me my life back.
Yeah, it has. It seems like it has. Yeah, I know, it's awesome. It's awesome to hear your story.
Yeah. So how did you get into how did the team leader, the TACFIT team leader, how did that happen? Because we were together at the level 1, at the original one.
Right, we were at the level 1, and then I remember not that far after, I think it was that next maybe 8 or 9 months later, I did the trial by fire for CST level 1, right? So I was just kind of going through, I wanted to be well versed in every piece. If he was going to offer an into flow or a Prosara workshop certification, then I was in. And so I just started going through the different certifications to try to more fully understand the different components of circular strength training, so that I could be a valuable coach. And I think it was at the trial by fire must have been the next summer. I was trying to kind of skip ahead. I think, you're supposed to go level by level. And I think I had prepared to test at a level higher than I really should have, because I hadn't done the preceding level. And I remember Scott kind of called me out and was like, why are you trying to test at, it was Flow Fit and trial by fire combined. And he's like, why is it that you want to test at this next level yet when you haven't done the previous, And I remember just point blank saying, because I want to be one of your team leaders. Like I'm ready. I want to be someone who really dives into this, and I want to understand it more deeply. I want to work with you on being able to get this information out and educate people, because I just think it's gold, And he kind of laughed, and I think, hopefully appreciated my enthusiasm. But of course, had some real wisdom in helping me understand the value in really going through the progressions and going through the steps and not skipping a level. And so I from that point on was really working hard to just go level by level through all the protocols and all the tools and understand how to master them. And I think it was even, within that same year, I came down to Legacy for a workshop. And I think it was Alberto Galazzi that asked me if I had ever considered becoming a team leader. And I hadn't. I don't know that I knew that I wanted that specific role and to go for the top, to go all in essentially at this system. But I don't think I had really thought about undertaking the training required to become a team leader. I think in my mind before that point, I had just kind of thought, well, if I keep coming to certifications and I just keep doing the workouts, and eventually maybe I'll just be ready to be a team leader. And that was a turning point for me in recognizing that, if I really want that, I think there needs to be a higher level of commitment on my end in terms of training and study and preparedness for the team leader test. So that was in, what was that? October of 2016, I think, that you had that workshop at Legacy.
Yeah, I think so.
Yeah.
Something like that.
It was either September or October. And so that whole year was dedicated to the team leader training.
Oh yeah, after that, the whole year after that.
Yeah, the whole year after that.
Yeah.
Yeah, because I think I finally passed the test after 2 failed attempts. I passed in August of 2017.
What did it mean to pass? What did that mean to you?
I think it meant, to me, it meant following through, like the full follow through of the desired goal. And especially towards the end, it was really just knowing that I didn't want to give up until I had accomplished it. So no matter how long it took, which was a really hard thing to swallow, because I think if I had failed again, you get to a point where, physically my body needed to take a break and recover, because I had been through 3 cycles of buildup and preparing for that peak, that performance peak. And I knew that physically that was pushing it a little too much. Like I probably should have, in hindsight, I should have worked into my team leader training. I should have cycled in a recovery phase, at least one recovery phase more than I did. And I was definitely bringing myself to the brink of injury in a couple of different specific movements because of how hard I was pushing. And so for me to pass it was just this awesome feeling of accomplishment, that I had not given up on this thing that I knew was attainable, but it was just going to take everything that I had to accomplish.
Plus the sacrifice of your family, right? It's time away.
Oh, so much. Yeah. And it really set me up well. The mental game of that year, the physical training for anything, I think high level, is really hard. And every athlete knows that the physical training is really hard. But it's the mental side of, stepping into the pain and the discomfort and the hours of sacrificing the time away from, other things in your life that you have to say no to a lot of things in order to say yes to a specific goal. And I think the mental game for me that year was such a huge component. And there were so many ups and downs and so many victories, and then it felt like defeats, which was really good for me to go through. I think I came out on the other side of it much more aware of what I was capable of and how to endure things, especially how to endure failure and how to endure, disappointment, because the things that felt disappointing to me were often because of my own constructs or my own expectations that maybe I needed to adjust. And so, I think I learned how to become really, truly resilient, which is the whole point of the training process. And I felt like I became resilient in a whole other way, which has now played into, how I've been able to take on some bigger career goals and go through some really rigorous training for a whole new career path, which I don't know that I would have been.
Firefighting later in your life.
Yeah, becoming a firefighter later in life, especially as a mom, is, having 2 little kids and being, going through academy and going through the time and the sacrifice that required. I really attribute a lot of that to, my experience with my team leader journey.
Yeah, because that team leader thing it's one thing, but then even as a female, you have to go all in, right? You have to really sacrifice. You have to put in so much, but even especially as a female, and you have a family, you have kids, on top of that, gosh. And so to juggle that is for me, it's man, it's truly inspiring, and people can follow, they can watch your team leader video, Alaina,
yeah.
Alaina Sawaya, yeah, team leader, just to see that, but it's man, it was super inspiring for me. Just if you can do it, anybody can. If you put your mind to it, right, and don't give up, right, and then
I love that video. I love your vision for capturing all of that. As nervous as I was for you to film it, because I just wanted to be focused and not distracted, and I just knew nothing could get in the way of me passing.
Right. I tried to get out of it. I was like, no.
I know. I didn't want you to film it. I really
didn't say no. I was like, sure.
Yeah, right. I know. I think there was at least 3 phone calls where I tried to talk you out of it, or tried to say no, and you just wouldn't take no for an answer. And in hindsight, it's man, that video. I watched that video.
It's like a mind movie, right?
Hard.
It's a mind movie, right?
It is.
If you have a goal, you chase it, right? And stop. There's gonna be hardships, right? But you don't give up, right? Until you do it.
Yeah, you hear stories, or people say things that seem so cliche about, really it's not about being the fastest, like the tortoise and the hare. But man, I look back on that experience, and it really was just about showing up every day, multiple times a day, doing the work that I knew I needed to be done, no matter how hard it was and no matter how defeated I felt or, exhausted, just, and learning how to train myself within that exhaustion. Like, what does my body need today so that I can perform better tomorrow, and just keep moving and don't give up, keep your eyes on the goal. Like, all of those things came into play. And it really was cool to see that if you just show up and, do your best, you can accomplish some pretty incredible things.
That's it. Love it.
Yeah.
How did it help you exactly? What are some of the things that how it helped you? You mentioned that it helped you go, move into the firefighting career that you're in the process of right now. So what are some of the things that helped you get through academy and just kind of be more resilient? Be resilient. I'm not gonna say become resilient. You became resilient. Watching you go through that team leader grueling process. I mean, it's like by yourself, right? And it's like finding motivation. And you're like I felt like I was the last guy in the world, like training for this team leader thing when I was doing it. It was like a whole year.
Alone.
What's that? Yeah, I mean, luckily I was able to. I had Robert. I had people help me, of course, but it was definitely like, man, what am I doing? So I'm sure you had those moments too, like, what am I doing?
For sure. What am I doing? Why am I doing this?
Yeah. But it's not about that, right? It's about, for me, it's about like your mind, right? Like, if I can do this, I can do anything.
Yeah, I think there's been a lot of things, little milestones in my life that have been that, where I feel like, okay, if I can do this, I can do anything. Like, I've got into some mountaineering for a while, and felt like there was a few mountain trips where I was like, man, if I can do this, I can do anything. If I can be this cold for this long and suffer this hard, like, I can do anything. And then childbirth is another one of those milestones where it's like, oh, okay, like, if I could do this, I can do anything. And team leader training was definitely one of those milestones. And I think it prepared me specifically for my pursuit of firefighting, in that it taught me how to train intelligently. Instead of just coming at training sort of haphazardly or following somebody else's protocols, I was able to really figure out, how do I move? Where are my weaknesses? Where are my strengths? And what movements are specific to this new job? Firefighting is such a myriad of jobs in one. There's so many expected competencies within firefighting, and physically, like, there's such a high demand. You go from sleeping to sprinting and carrying heavy load and moving over awkward terrain, sometimes in the dark, and you're in full alarm rescue mode. And just knowing that the job requires that, I started to pick apart, what do I really need to be able to do this and do it without damaging my long-term health, like, do this in a way that keeps me injury-free, hopefully, and keeps me in a good headspace and with a good quality of life and movement for the days off that I have with my family. And so I think it really gave me an understanding, and I will forever be trying to understand fully, I'll forever be learning this, but it gave me a better understanding of how to train myself intelligently, and how to specifically, through academy, take care of myself by looking at the overall volume of what we were doing on the drill ground, because we would have long days on the drill ground with, ladders and heavy hose loads and tools and awkward movements and all of our 75 pounds of, bunker gear and breathing apparatus and all of that. And then on top of that, we would usually have an hour of physical training where we actually did workouts as an academy. So taking that cumulative workload and figuring out, what can I do when I get home tonight or early tomorrow morning before I head in to set myself up for success? Like, how can I release that tension that I've accumulated and take care of my tissues and not just crash and go to sleep? And so it set me up well in that way. It also set me up well mentally, just knowing how, I guess, knowing a new edge, like knowing how far I've pushed myself before and what I've been able to endure and bounce back from gave me a new level of confidence going into academy. Like, this is going to be hard, and there's going to be days where I'm really struggling and physically suffering, but at no point did I feel like I wasn't capable or I was going to quit ever. Like, that never even crossed my mind. And I think a lot of that comes from the mental resilience that I built in my training prior. And then I think lastly, just it's really taught me how to think health first in general. Like, how can I think I went into academy wanting to be, it's going to be hard for everybody. How can I come into this and be a person that like lifts other people up, in terms of health first? Like, how can I help promote the health of everybody around me and be someone who advocates for like all of us being stoked about being here and enjoying this process and be someone who sort of imparts, if possible, if there's ever, an avenue for it and it's not inappropriate, like, how can I help either someone who's in an evolution with me or someone who's working out next to me? How can I help them with just a little bit of information that might make them better at what they're trying to do, or make them less prone to injury or less defeated by, the magnitude of what we're trying to do. So I think I guess that would be, I guess I'm not articulating that well. In my mind, that's health first in terms of a broader scope of like looking out into the community, like looking out into the people around me, not being so self-focused, but looking at like, how can I help the people around me more? Because I've done that as a coach for a long time, but it's a very unique role when you're hired by somebody as an expert to come into their life and be their coach. But then to be, peers with somebody, it's really easy to become self-focused when you're struggling or suffering. And so I think what was really fun for me was to be in academy and to, no matter how hard it got, I felt like I was still so stoked to be there and so capable of kind of sharing that positivity and joy with the people around me. And that was really important to me, to feel like I could lift others up around me.
Is TACFIT the fountain of youth?
I'm sorry?
Is TACFIT the fountain of youth?
That's a great way to think of it. I think it's definitely the beginning of the fountain of youth. I mean, I think being able to move well for your whole life helps reverse the aging process, helps reverse breakdown and decay. And I guess you could think of it as the fountain of youth.
Keeps your joints, keeps your brain, because your joints and your body's moving, keeps your brain moving, working the right way, right? And keeps everything connected, right? Which keeps you young, right? Neurologically, which is physically, right?
Well, it grows your brain. Definitely grows your brain. I mean,
keeps those connections strong.
Yeah.
Increases the brain maps, right? You improve those brain maps, like by increasing your movement. We're always learning, right? You said this is it's a lifelong pursuit, right? It never ends. TACFIT.
Never ends.
It's like it just never ends.
Well, yeah, and I guess that speaks directly to another superpower that it gives you, is feeling like you can step into anything as a beginner and not feel overwhelmed by it. Like, it's harder and harder the older you get, especially if you become specialized or you become an expert in a certain field. It's hard to start over and be a beginner and feel like you don't know anything all over again. That's a really uncomfortable and vulnerable place to be. And I think because of the perpetual learning and the brain mapping and just the constant neurogenesis that the TACFIT movements and the sequencing of programs create, I really do love that I'm able to step into beginner roles and start all over in the learning process and feel stoked about it, or feel like it's not overwhelming.
I tell people it's the fountain of youth.
Yeah, I mean, it's a great way to put it.
I'm like, it's the fountain of youth, man. You know, I'm 40 going on 25.
Yeah, right. I know. Stronger and fitter than I've ever been.
Look at, yeah, exactly, right? And you're in there with guys in their 20s, right? I mean, I'm just, I'm just saying for myself too, like, man, doing all the TACFIT stuff, right? The components and just living it, right? Gets you prepared for anything.
Right. It's pretty crazy.
And more importantly, it helps you live your best life, right?
It does. It does. And it is cool to see, like, I've had the opportunity to, like you said, be in it, in the thick of hardcore training and physical testing with 22-year-olds. Actually, there was a 21-year-old, 21, 22-year-old men who are strong and young and very fit. And I mean, there was never a moment where I felt like I didn't belong there in terms of my mental and physical capacities. And I just thought, like, if I would have had this at their age, like, oh, the things you can do, once you have
it's unfair advantage.
It is a little bit of an unfair advantage, but
you got to do the work.
You can do anything when you're 20 and it makes you stronger, but at some point your body starts accumulating the stress that you're not letting go of, or the tension that you're not releasing, and you end up with really tight, really imbalanced structure. And I think, so I think in that regard, having this system and this way of looking at movement and fitness, I feel like I've reversed my aging process a little bit for sure, because I'm able to go back and compete like I'm in my 20s.
See, I knew it. Fountain of youth. Told you.
even better than
Even better, right?
Crazy. Even better.
It makes you better than where you were 20 years ago.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, I wish I could go back and
you upgrade yourself. You upgrade yourself.
I would. I would. Yeah.
I try to get all the young guys and doing it, maybe they don't feel like they need it, try to stretch and all these things, but it's about building those habits, right? And so when you do need it, it's there. And also you just create that routine, right? So yeah, I try to keep at it, it's all the right stuff, right? And it's not even just for you to be your best, right? To like performance, right? Increases your performance. It makes you faster,
totally does,
makes you stronger. Makes you, it makes you healthy too. More importantly,
and you talk about, like, it comes back to your habits. It builds the right habits, and I think it's funny because I remember one time Scott and I were talking about, that what's necessary in terms of training, and what things are prioritized over others, and he casually said something like, all you have to change is everything.
All you have to change is everything.
Yeah, and it's so true, because like, in its simplicity, like, you just have to start with something and then slowly work your way. You attack one habit, and the success that you feel inspires you to attack the next habit, and then that snowballs. But really, when you look back at all the things, I look back at my journey with strength and conditioning, and more specifically circular strength training and TACFIT, and in hindsight, like, I have ultimately changed everything. Like, my entire paradigm has shifted about how I perceive fitness, like what fitness means and what it means to be really, truly, like, health centered. And so you do end up changing everything, and all you have to do is change everything, but you're not going to change it all at once. You start with one habit at a time. TACFIT gives you the tools to do that systematically and feel successful.
Have you seen that Mandarin show, the Star Wars Mandarin?
No. Oh, the Mandalorian. Yeah.
Mandalorian. What did I say? The Mandarin.
Mandarin.
Sorry, Mandalorian. Yeah, the Star Wars. Yeah, you saw it. You watched it.
Oh yeah, for sure.
And he goes, "This is the way."
The way.
This is the way.
Right. This is the way. This is the way. The rebellion. It's like the small rebellion.
But that she fixes his armor, and like they have the sayings, right? And that was one of their sayings. This is the way. Whatever they say.
Yeah. He always says that. Yeah, it's been fun. I mean, it's been a fun community to be part of too. I think, being connected to other TACFIT
We have some
coaches
fun around the world.
Oh, for sure. Yeah, like being able to connect with, like I spoke this morning with, I was on the phone with Ryan Probationary and Matt Weiss, and just talking about, the future of some projects, and it's just fun to connect with those guys, especially, now that it really feels like a global world because everybody's in isolation. And so the only way we connect is through social media and digital platforms. But yeah, it's a fun group of people, and it's been cool to be part of a team of people who really care about the right things,
Yeah.
It often feels, I know in the strength and conditioning, or in fitness, in the fitness world in general, it often felt like sometimes I was swimming upstream, wanting workouts to be focused on something other than aesthetics, knowing that aesthetics are a bonus, like if you become stronger and your performance improves, usually aesthetically you see changes in your body composition. But yeah, it's really fun to be part of a team of people who are in that same vein of like really wanting to dig deeper into like the why behind things and understand, how to be health first, how to approach things with a holistic health mentality.
Coming from a martial arts background for me, fitness, of course, like it's cool and all that, but like TACFIT's different, it has that martial arts culture in it.
Yeah, you said that before, and I'm curious specifically, like how, especially now that you've been steeped in it for so many years, like you must see so many parallels between, obviously, like Scott created it from a martial arts background, and just since that's not my background, there's a lot of gaps in understanding the connections, and it seems like you really are able to make those connections between martial arts and the TACFIT, the baseline of TACFIT.
You're asking me what are the
how do you see
I think
parallels?
the culture, and so with that is like the awareness that you gain, you gain like self awareness, right? You get more self-aware that you get with martial arts, and the connections, the deep bonds you get with others through it, and it's something else.
And the levels you have to go through.
There's different levels, but it's all the same components, like you get more self-aware, you become better, you really reach your potential. And for me, like doing jiu-jitsu and fighting and all that, but the jiu-jitsu, I really feel like jiu-jitsu is a tool for you to be your best, live your best life, right? But it was definitely missing some pieces, right? And TACFIT kind of completes that circle, balances it out, because nobody showed us how to, to stretch, to compensate, to recover. It's in these old school, like, the recovery stuff is, Mr. Miyagi, right, does his little slaps, rubs his hands together to heal the shoulders, but it's kind of in martial arts, right? The traditional martial arts, kind of, right? But nobody taught us those things, and definitely not at the level that Scott Sonnon is coming from, right? So he really completed the circle, and made me understand just how to train and how to, just everything, right? Just made me a better teacher. It's just like I said, I'm learning, right? I'm learning, but it's like a martial art, like TACFIT, because you're not fighting with anybody except yourself, right? You're trying to keep that good technique, right? You're trying to keep your breath with the movement, the structure, staying within that 60 to 80% of your heart rate max, not going over 80, right?
Yeah.
And if you do go over that, right, you've lost the fight. So the fight's with yourself, and like you're saying, like training smart, right? So you can sustain, so you can maintain to do whatever your goal is, right?
Yeah.
To have your brain work better, to be able to do more, right? For you to work, be able to do more, to be, have better ideas. For you to live your best life.
And I would imagine that with, having your own jiu-jitsu facility and being, teaching people martial arts, like the breath awareness component of, I'm learning breath awareness from a TACFIT or a strength and conditioning perspective. And I would imagine understanding the true application of that in a martial art really makes it come to life.
Well, like you're trying to keep your technique, right? You're adding stress. Right. You're adding stress, right? To TACFIT. Okay, sure. Your breath with the movement, the structure, but then you step on the gas and you start to add stress. For example, or your team leader training, right? Mm-hmm. You step on the you red line, you step on the gas. That's a fight, right? And can you keep your composure in the battle? Can you keep it together, or how long, how fast, and it's all built in, like techniques, right, to do that, to progress, different ways of breathing. It's just like, it's ridiculous how awesome. Far you can go down the rabbit hole, with all these different pieces of self, right, of our bodies.
Yeah.
So,
and just how much control you have over your heart rate through your breath.
Right.
Like that became amazing. I mean, I just think of like the first time I got on the mat and rolled at Legacy, and I think I got pinned in like 4 seconds, or I tapped in like 4 seconds. But I was immediately thrown into what I know as like a spinal rock, right?
Mm-hmm.
The girl I was essentially in a spinal rock position or a pike position. And I just remember, very calmly, I think you were right next to me and you said something like, exhale.
Yeah.
It's like in the spinal rock, if you exhale and you relax into that compression, that flexion of spine and compression of your structure, you can kind of hold that position and be okay.
Yeah.
And then, and then as you come out of it, you got to inhale again. And it was just such a, like, it was a thing that I thought I knew so well, but then all of a sudden when somebody else's body is pinning me down and I feel like I've lost my awareness, I'm disoriented, stressed out, I totally lost my breath, and I was holding my breath and I was done, like in a matter of seconds. And it was really fascinating to me to think like, gosh, there's a whole nother level to this that you don't really master until you apply it in like hand-to-hand combat with another person. Take some of these movements and apply the stress of,
like you're saying, like you're breaking down the spinal rock, and the way you breathe, the components are all there, right? And so you do it enough, like it just, that's what I'm saying. Like team leaders and stuff, they're not just like, they're not white belts, It's pretty remarkable when I see them come and invite. They always go on the mat, their game, but I'm not worried about even Ryan, who's been in the system, Ryan Provencher, he's been in the system for, forever. And so he's the perfect example, He was able to do a whole class in the advanced class, his first time on the mat.
That's great.
Yeah,
I bet.
I mean, that's not normal. That doesn't happen, unless a guy's like he has a wrestling background or has some other kind of grappling background usually. But because he was able to control his breath and control his gripping and, things like that allow you to, to be able to keep training and to keep moving and not let your heart rate get crazy, right? He has that awareness, right? Okay, my heart rate's getting too high. Okay, relax, breathe out.
Yeah, he definitely has that awareness. And, he has that awareness on an occupational level as well, obviously. Yeah, it's magic.
I have one more question.
Oh, sure.
Do you have any regrets in your career as far as being a trainer and, I don't know, things that you wish you would have done?
I wish that I had paid more attention to, I think I've always made an excuse for myself that I'm just not really that technologically savvy. I don't really enjoy I don't really enjoy being on the computer. I don't enjoy, editing film or, just it feels like wasted time to me to be sitting behind a computer or to be messing around with an app because it's time that it takes me away from time with my family. And so I've never prioritized it. And there are so many times that I wanted to give my clients more. I wanted to be able to give them, and I did give, I spent quite a bit of time filming videos of certain movements or certain sequences of movements and transitions between movements to really help clients understand them. And I had kind of a rudimentary way of sharing those through Dropbox or YouTube or different things. But it was never streamlined. And I always felt like I was reinventing the wheel. And And I think in some ways I just gave up on that side of my business. And man, it's such a valuable tool for people to be able, especially once you build a connection with people, you know, they really want, I've tried to give my clients to other professionals, you know, when I've had to step away from training and coaching to pursue some other things. And it's really hard. You can't replicate that relationship and that trust that you've built. And so I think I regret not being able to give them more in the times that I've had to step away. You know, I wish that I had paid more attention to or sought out more of an education in, or even just, you know, found another professional to help do it for me. Like, how do I offer online videos or an online app platform that allows me to interact with and track my clients and give them videos in a way that doesn't make more work for me, and it frees me up to do the other things I need to focus on, but really still takes care of them well and helps them to feel connected and to keep up with their practice. Because I don't run a gym, you know, like Legacy is such a great communal hub for people to come and feel connected and practice. And I think having a private studio, I often ran into the challenge of, you know, people feeling disconnected or left hanging if they couldn't personally meet with me. And, you know, I wish I would have spent more time setting people up to where I wasn't the crux, you know, where they didn't necessarily, things didn't hinge on me. And I gave them more tools to really empower them to keep practicing and doing what they needed to do beyond me, you know, beyond our private training sessions. That's something that I wish I could go back and do differently, for sure. Especially now, you know, while everybody
is online,
life is all online right now, and it'd be the perfect time to really maximize some of those things.
Nice. Well, thanks for your time.
Absolutely.
Yeah, I appreciate you've been inspiration for me, you know, in my TACFIT journey, and I appreciate your friendship.
Thanks, Alberto.
And I look forward to the future, you know, in TACFIT and, you know, your career, your firefighting career, and more success, and doing good work, you know, helping people, right, on all kinds of levels.
Oh yeah, that's
helping people be their best.
That's the ultimate goal, helping people be their best, for sure. Yeah, no, thanks for having me. I really I'm honored that you wanted to have a conversation, and it's really cool to be able to be part of this TACFIT community with you. So thank you.
Honor's mine. Thank you. How can people find you?
Well, I have a website. It's my name, Alaina Sawaya.com. So ALAINA SAWAYA. And right now that's probably the easiest way. I'm a little bit incognito right now with just being so focused on the beginnings of my new career. But I would love to, you know, I'm always available to communicate and have conversations, answer questions, you know, be of any help that I can be to people. And then I hope to be more involved and physically present with the TACFIT community in the future, for sure.
Awesome. Looking forward.
Yeah, thank you.
Looking forward. Thank you. All right. Thank you. Talk to you soon.
Talk to you soon, Alberto.
Okay. Take care. Bye-bye.
Bye.